The Kingdom of Amara and Queen Idara's wisdom. In the heart of the lush hills and endless forests, there was a kingdom called Amara. This kingdom was known far and wide for its peace and prosperity. The people lived in harmony with nature, and their lives were rich with laughter, kindness, and respect for the land. The sun shone brightly over the fields of golden crops, and the rivers sparkled with clear, fresh water. Animals roamed freely, and the birds filled the air with sweet melodies at dawn. If you're loving this video, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. It's free, and it helps us bring you more awesome content. Don't forget to turn on the bell so you won't miss a thing. We're so happy to have you with us. And if you're enjoying what you're watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community. Don't forget to click the bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops. Thanks for being here. At the center of Amara stood Queen Idara, a wise and kind ruler who was loved by all. She wore a simple crown made of gold, shaped like a baobab tree, with the symbol of a snake coiled around it. This was no ordinary crown, for it symbolized her special bond with Ekong, a magical python who was both the guardian and protector of the kingdom. Ekong was a magnificent creature. His scales shimmered with the colors of the earth, greens, browns, and golds, and his eyes glowed like the sun at dusk. He was not just a serpent, he was a spiritual being who kept the balance between the earth and the people of Amara. The villagers believed that Ekong's presence brought life to the land and kept their homes safe from harm. Every morning, Queen Idara would sit beneath the ancient baobab tree, deep in meditation, while Ekong coiled around its thick trunk, watching over her. People would come to the queen for advice, and she would always listen carefully before offering her wisdom. The earth speaks to those who listen, she would say, and it is through the balance of nature that we find true peace. The bond between Queen Idara and Ekong was strong. The python understood the queen's every thought, and she could feel his presence in every whisper of the wind and every ripple in the water. Together, they made sure that the kingdom remained a place of harmony. The crops grew tall and healthy, the rivers flowed without interruption, and the Idara's rule was kind, but it was also firm. She knew that to keep the land in balance, she had to listen to the wisdom of the elders and the spirits of the land. And so, she made sure to always respect the old ways, the ancient traditions passed down by her ancestors. The people of Amara followed her example, living with respect for the earth and one another. Despite the peace and prosperity that surrounded them, there were some who did not share in the queen's vision. In the shadows of the palace, whispers began to grow. These whispers were not from the people, but from those who had long been jealous of Queen Idara's close relationship with Ekong. They wondered if the kingdom could not thrive without the presence of the magical python, or perhaps even without the queen herself. Among these voices was one man, a trusted advisor named Obina. Obina had served Queen Idara for many years. He was loyal and intelligent, but over time, a dark feeling began to grow inside him. He could see how the people adored the queen and how they turned to her for wisdom. He could see how Ekong's magic kept the kingdom prosperous, and it filled him with a deep jealousy. Why was it that Queen Idara had such power? Why was it that Ekong, a creature of magic, was so loved? Obina began to dream of a time when he too would hold the power to rule. But he kept these thoughts hidden, knowing that to speak them aloud would mean the end of his position. Still, in the quiet corners of his mind, the seed of envy was planted. Little did he know, these dark thoughts would soon grow into something that could destroy the very balance of Amara. As Queen Idara sat in her quiet moments of reflection, surrounded by the beauty of the land, she had no idea that trouble was brewing in the shadows. She was focused on keeping her kingdom safe and strong, trusting that the wisdom she shared with Ekong would continue to guide her people. But somewhere in the corners of the kingdom, a storm was beginning to stir, a storm that would challenge the bond between the queen and her magical protector, been unleashed. We must find the source of the disturbance before it is too late. Queen Idara's heart filled with dread. She had always known that the kingdom's harmony depended on her bond with Ekong. Now she realized that someone had betrayed her, and that someone was very close to her. The moon was full that night, casting its eerie light over the Kingdom of Amara. Queen Idara stood under the ancient baobab tree, her heart heavy with the knowledge that something terrible was happening. Ekong, the once powerful and wise python, lay at her feet, his glowing eyes dull and lifeless. The bond they had shared for so long was fading, and with it, the peace and prosperity of Amara. "What has happened, Ekong?" the queen asked, her voice trembling with fear. "Why is the kingdom suffering? Why are the rivers running dry? Why do the animals flee in terror?" Ekong's tongue flicked out as he struggled to speak, his voice faint. "The balance has been broken, my queen. Someone has tampered with the forces of nature. A dark spirit has been awakened." Idara's heart sank as the truth began to settle within her. She had sensed the change, the disturbance in the air, but it wasn't until this moment that she realized the full extent of what had happened. The land, the crops, the rivers, all were affected by a force much stronger than anything they had faced before. And it had been caused by someone who wanted to take her place. Obina, her trusted advisor, the man she had once relied on, had betrayed her, and now the entire kingdom would suffer. The queen's fists clenched as a wave of anger surged through her. "I will not let this stand," she declared, her voice filled with resolve. "I will find the one who has caused this chaos and restore balance to Amara, no matter the cost." Ekong's eyes flickered with a spark of life as he raised his head slightly. "You must be careful, Queen Idara. The path ahead is dangerous. You will face trials unlike any you have known. The spirits of the land are angry, and they will not forgive easily." But Idara was undeterred. She had spent her life protecting the kingdom, and she would not allow it to fall into darkness now. She had seen the strength of the land's magic, and she knew that the only way to restore balance was to face the source of the curse head-on. "I will find the Forbidden Grove," she said, her eyes narrowing with determination. "I will undo this curse and save my people." Ekong hissed softly, warning her of the danger ahead. "The ritual that Obina performed has awakened ancient spirits, ones that cannot be controlled. They will test your will and your courage. Only the purest heart can restore balance." Queen Idara nodded, understanding the gravity of the task before her. She had always believed in the wisdom of the land, and now she would need all the strength and knowledge she had gained over the years to face the challenges ahead. As the queen set out from the baobab tree, she felt a shift in the air. The winds whispered, as if the spirits were trying to warn her of the danger that lay in wait. But she pressed on, her heart set on her mission. The Kingdom of Amara depended on her, and she would not fail. The journey to the Forbidden Grove was long and treacherous. The once vibrant forests of Amara now seemed dark and foreboding. The trees, once full of life, were now twisted and barren, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, and every step the queen took was met with a chilling silence. It was as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. As she walked, Queen Idara could feel the weight of the spirits watching her. They were everywhere, hidden in the shadows, waiting for her to make a mistake. She could hear their whispers, their soft voices carried on the wind. They spoke of the past, of ancient times when the world was in balance, and of the destruction that would come if the bond between humans and nature was broken. The Forbidden Grove was not far from the palace, but it felt as if Queen Idara had walked for days. The trees seemed to grow taller and closer together, forming a dense, almost impenetrable canopy. The ground beneath her feet was soft and uneven, and the path was barely visible, covered in thick vines and twisted roots. But she knew she had to continue. The spirits were watching, and she could feel their judgment bearing down on her. When she finally reached the grove, she felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The air was thick with dark magic, and the trees seemed to whisper in voices that were not their own. At the center of the grove stood a large stone altar, cracked and covered in moss. This was where the forbidden ritual had taken place, the place where Obina had broken the balance of the land. Queen Idara stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She knelt before the altar, her hands pressed against the cold stone. As she touched it, a surge of energy shot through her, and she was suddenly filled with a sense of urgency. The spirits were angry, and they were not going to let her undo what had been done easily. A voice echoed in her mind, one that was neither male nor female. You have come to undo what has been broken, but know this, only through sacrifice will the balance be restored. Idara's heart skipped a beat. What must I sacrifice? She asked, her voice steady despite the fear that rose within her. The voice grew softer, almost sorrowful. A piece of your soul, Queen Idara, a part of yourself that you cherish. Only then will the curse be lifted. Only then will the kingdom be saved. The queen closed her eyes, thinking of her people, her land, and the bond she shared with Ekong. The decision was not easy. She had always placed the well-being of her kingdom above her own, but this was a sacrifice unlike any she had ever faced. She took a deep breath, her decision made. I will sacrifice whatever it takes to save Amara. Queen Idara stood before the stone altar, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision she had just made. The voice of the spirit had warned her of the sacrifice she must endure to restore balance to Amara. She could feel the eyes of the land upon her, the spirits watching, waiting for her to make her move. The cursed air of the forbidden grove seemed to close in around her, thick with ancient magic. With a steady breath, the queen rose to her feet, her resolve firm. She placed her hands over her heart, feeling the pulse of life within her. I am ready, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The moment the words left her lips, a sudden gust of wind swept through the grove, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. The trees around her seemed to shake as though they were alive, their twisted branches creaking and groaning. It was as if the spirits were reacting to her acceptance of the sacrifice. The air turned colder, and a bright light began to form in the center of the altar. Queen Idara felt the pull of the magic, drawing her in. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, her mind focused on the task ahead. She needed to save her kingdom. The suffering of her people was more important than anything. As she approached the light, a strange sensation washed over her. It was as if time itself had stopped. The grove fell silent, and the world around her began to fade away. The earth beneath her feet softened, and she found herself standing in an entirely different place, a realm where the laws of nature seemed to bend and twist. She was no longer in the forbidden grove. She had entered a realm of pure magic, a place between worlds. The sky above was dark, swirling with colors she had never seen before. Strange, glowing orbs floated in the air, casting an eerie light on the landscape. The ground beneath her feet was made of shimmering crystal, and in the distance, she could see towering mountains that seemed to pulse with energy. Before her appeared a figure cloaked in shadows, its face hidden by a hood. The figure spoke in a voice that echoed through the air, sending chills down her spine. You have come to restore balance, Queen Idara, the figure said. But do you understand the cost of what you seek? Queen Idara nodded, her voice steady. I do. I am willing to sacrifice whatever is necessary to save Amara and its people. The figure stepped forward, its eyes glowing faintly beneath the hood. Your heart is pure, and your intentions are noble, but the spirits do not give their gifts freely. You must prove your strength and your wisdom through 3 trials. Only then will you be worthy of the power you seek. Queen Idara took a deep breath, her body tense. What are these trials? The figure raised its hand, and the air around them seemed to shimmer with magic. The first trial is of the mind. You must face your deepest fears and confront the darkness within you. Only then will you be able to move forward. At that moment, the ground beneath her feet began to shake, and a deep, guttural voice echoed in the air. The trees around her warped and twisted, and the once calm waters of the river became wild and churning. Queen Idara found herself standing at the edge of a vast, blackened chasm. On the other side, she could see her greatest fear, a vision of her kingdom in ruins, her people suffering, and herself powerless to stop it. The queen stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. She had seen this vision before, when the land was cursed, when Obina's betrayal had destroyed everything she had worked for. She had watched the kingdom crumble, and now it seemed that her greatest fear was becoming a reality. But as she stood there, she remembered the words of Ekong. The spirits will test your strength and courage. Do not let fear control you. Queen Idara clenched her fists, her heart steadying. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, crossing the chasm with courage and determination. The fear that had gripped her melted away, replaced by a deep sense of clarity and purpose. She was not powerless. She had the strength to protect her kingdom. The chasm vanished, and the figure before her nodded. "You have passed the first trial, Queen Idara. Now, the second trial awaits." Without warning, the world around her shifted once again. She found herself standing in a vast, empty desert, the sun beating down on her with unrelenting heat. In the distance, she could see a single large stone. It was cracked and weathered, yet it seemed to pulse with energy. "You must cross this desert to reach the stone," the figure's voice echoed. "But you must do so without the aid of any magic. Only your own strength and perseverance will guide you." Queen Idara felt the heat of the desert floor beneath her feet as she began her journey toward the stone. The winds howled around her, and the sun seemed to burn brighter with every step she took. Her body ached, and sweat dripped down her brow. But she pressed on, her mind focused on her goal. As she walked, the desert began to play tricks on her. The heat distorted the landscape, and the mirages of water seemed to taunt her. She stumbled, her strength beginning to wane, but she refused to stop. She remembered the faces of her people, the cries of the children who depended on her. She could not give up. After what felt like an eternity, Queen Idara finally reached the stone. It stood tall and proud, its surface glowing with a faint, magical light. As she touched it, a wave of energy surged through her, and she was filled with a deep sense of power. She had passed the second trial. The figure appeared before her once more, nodding in approval. "You have completed the second trial, Queen Idara. The final trial awaits." The world around her shifted once more, and she found herself standing in a dark, cavernous hall. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, and the walls seemed to close in around her. At the center of the hall stood a pedestal, and on it lay a small, glowing stone. The figure's voice echoed through the hall. "The final trial is of the heart. You must choose between your own desires and the greater good. Only by making the right choice will you earn the power to restore balance." Queen Idara stepped forward, her mind racing. She could feel the weight of the decision before her. On one hand, the stone represented the power to restore Amara and protect her people. But on the other, it represented a deep sacrifice, a choice that would change everything she knew. With a steady hand, she reached for the stone. She could feel the energy within it, the magic that pulsed with life. But as her fingers brushed against its surface, she paused. She thought of Ekong, of her kingdom, and of the people who trusted her. Her heart filled with a sense of clarity, and she knew what she had to do. She turned away from the stone, choosing to leave it behind. The power was not hers to claim. It belonged to the spirits of the land, to the balance of nature itself. As she made the choice, the world around her erupted in light, and the figure before her smiled. "You have passed all three trials, Queen Idara. You have proven your strength, wisdom, and heart. The balance will be restored." Queen Idara stood at the edge of the sacred clearing, her heart still racing from the trials she had faced. The last trial had been the hardest, when she had to choose between her own desires and the greater good. But she had made the right choice, and now the spirits had granted her the strength to restore balance to the kingdom. The sky above her had turned a deep, foreboding gray, swirling with ominous clouds. It was clear that the curse had not yet been broken, and time was running out. The land still groaned under the weight of the darkness that had been unleashed. The animals were restless, and the crops were failing. The people of Amara were on the brink of despair, but Queen Idara was resolute. She had come this far, and she would not fail them now. With every step she took toward the heart of the kingdom, the air seemed to thicken, as if the very earth was holding its breath. The spirits had shown her the way, but she knew the final battle was ahead. Obina, the man who had betrayed her, was the source of the curse, and he would stop at nothing to see her fall. As she approached the royal palace, the place that had once been a symbol of prosperity and joy, she felt a chill in the air. The gates were wide open, but the courtyard was eerily silent. The gardens that had once been full of color and life were now overgrown with thorns and dark vines. The once pristine palace stood shrouded in shadow, its grand stone walls now cracked and decaying. Queen Idara moved forward with purpose, her mind clear and focused. She knew what she had to do. She had to confront Obina, face him, and break the curse once and for all. Inside the palace, she found him waiting for her. Obina stood in the great hall, his back turned as he gazed out of the window. He seemed almost peaceful, but there was something sinister in the air, a dark aura that clung to him like a shadow that could not be shaken. "Obina," Queen Idara called out, her voice firm. "It's over. The curse ends tonight." He turned slowly, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The man who had once been her closest ally now seemed like a stranger. His face was pale, his expression twisted with greed and malice. "You think you can stop me, Queen Idara?" Obina's voice was cold, dripping with disdain. "I have already won. The spirits have given me power beyond your comprehension. The kingdom belongs to me now." Idara's heart tightened as she realized the depth of his betrayal. Obina had never cared for the people of Amara. He had always been consumed by his hunger for power, and now that hunger had led him to make an alliance with dark spirits that threatened to destroy everything they had worked for. "You've awakened forces you don't understand, Obina," Idara said, her voice rising with authority. "The balance of the land has been shattered because of your greed, but I will restore it, no matter what." Obina laughed, a hollow, mocking sound that echoed through the hall. "You think you can undo what I've done? The spirits are mine now, the curse is eternal, and you are nothing more than a pawn in this game." With a sudden movement, Obina raised his arms, and the dark energy that surrounded him surged. The air grew heavy, and the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Queen Idara could feel the power of the curse closing in on her, but she stood tall, refusing to back down. "I will not let you destroy everything I hold dear," she said firmly, her eyes blazing with the strength of her resolve. "I have been tested. I have faced my fears, my doubts, and my weaknesses, and now I will face you." With those words, she extended her hands, summoning the power of the spirits she had connected with in the trials. A surge of energy flowed through her, and the air around her seemed to shimmer with magic. The ancient forces that had once given her kingdom life now responded to her call. Obina's eyes widened in surprise as the ground beneath him cracked, and the shadows that had once followed him began to retreat. The spirits of the land were turning against him, no longer under his control. Queen Idara's magic was pure, and it was stronger than anything he had ever imagined. "You've lost, Obina," she said, her voice steady. "The balance is being restored." With a roar of fury, Obina lunged at her, but Queen Idara was ready. She raised her hands once more, and a brilliant light erupted from her, enveloping the entire room. The power of the spirits, the strength of her heart, and the wisdom she had gained through her trials all converged into one final, powerful blast. The light hit Obina with the force of a thunderstorm, sending him flying backward. He crashed into the stone wall with a mighty thud, and the dark energy surrounding him shattered like glass. The curse that had plagued the land for so long was finally broken. The room fell silent. Queen Idara stood panting, her heart racing with the effort of the final battle. The air in the palace seemed to shift, the oppressive weight of the curse lifting. Outside, the skies began to clear, and the dark clouds that had covered Amara for so long slowly began to dissipate. The stars above shone brightly once more, and the moon began to rise, its light casting a silver glow over the kingdom. But even as the curse lifted, Queen Idara knew there was still work to be done. The damage caused by Obina's actions would take time to heal, and the people of Amara would need her guidance. She could already hear the whispers of the people as they gathered outside the palace, waiting for news of their queen. Idara turned toward the broken figure of Obina, who now lay crumpled on the floor. His once gleaming eyes were dull and lifeless, and the power that had once radiated from him was gone. She approached him slowly, her expression unreadable. "You chose power over your people," she said softly, "and now you will pay the price." Obina did not respond, his body still as death. With a final glance at the fallen man, Queen Idara turned and walked to the balcony overlooking the kingdom. The people of Amara cheered as they saw her, their queen, standing tall and strong once more. The curse was broken, the land was healing, but there was more to be done. Queen Idara had faced the darkness within and had emerged victorious. She had sacrificed her fears, her doubts, and even a part of herself to restore balance. Now she would lead her people back into the light. With a calm breath, she raised her hands to the sky, the stars above seeming to respond to her call. "We are one," she declared, "and together we will restore Amara to its former glory." The end. If you're loving this video, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. It's free, and it helps us bring you more awesome content. Don't forget to turn on the bell so you won't miss a thing. We're so happy to have you with us. And if you're enjoying what you're watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community. Don't forget to click the bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops. Thanks for being here.